News stories were coming in about this strange virus in Wuhan, China. It was weeks before we saw the first cases in the US. As the numbers went up each day, my curiosity got the best of me, and I started plotting the curves. Here's stories from real people all over the world and how they've responded. I'm Sally Hendrick, founder of Shout Your Cause, and this is COVID-19, The World Responds. Hey, Kimberly, how are you doing? I'm Sally Hendrick.
Hi, Sally. I'm doing good, thanks. How are you?
Good to meet you finally. I reached out to you yesterday, just yesterday, to talk to you about what's going on in your world. You have stepped up in the forefront of some of the social media noise out there, and that's how I found you.
Yeah.
And so thank you so much for agreeing to talk with me today.
Hey, yeah, thanks for reaching out. I appreciate that. And it is a lot of noise, so it's nice to have an outlet that's a little bit more clear.
We need to be able to sit down and talk through some of these things because we are talking about very difficult topics these days. Obviously, this is the whole COVID-19 situation. My podcast is called COVID-19, The World Responds, and that is what I'm trying to do, is dig into all the different perspectives and bring forth the ideas and the stories so that we can actually have real conversations.
Yeah, I love that. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. So tell me a little bit about you just on the personal side and what do you do and what's your situation?
Yeah, so I'm a mom. I've got 3 boys who are aged 5, 3, and 1. They're super cute and I love them. They're all born here in Nashville. My husband and I have been here for about 6 years. We moved from Chicago, and we just love Nashville. We loved the entrepreneurial spirit of the city. We loved the friendliness of the people, and we're both Christians, and we loved just the ability to have so many options for church and so many people who would just pray with us on the street, and just a very loving community. And we are both entrepreneurs. So we've dabbled in different things. I used to be a photographer. I had a background in marketing, but that was a little hard to do with the kids. So something that we started this year that was supposed to help, give me a little bit more time with the kids because I want to homeschool them. We turned our home, half of it, into an Airbnb. Did this crazy renovation all ourselves, a total do-it-yourself project. Mm-hmm. And my husband, for the most part, his income, he does events and weddings. He's a DJ. So he'll mostly it's weddings, and then sometimes he'll do like restaurants and bars and stuff. And so that was kind of where we were, expecting most of our income to come from. And then when COVID-19 happened, it just kind of stopped everything. All of my husband's weddings got canceled. All of the restaurants obviously closed. Mm-hmm. And all of our guests from Airbnb canceled. And Airbnb gave all of the guests a carte blanche to cancel without any penalties. So 100% of the dollars that we were expecting to get, we didn't get any of that. It just kind of vanished overnight. And I would say, thankfully, I will recognize, we're both very privileged in the opportunities we've been given. We're privileged to have a house, and we're privileged to have loved ones who had extra money to help us out through this. My parents were able to give us money to provide for our food between then and now. But as we've seen the extension, and as we've seen kind of what the long-term social distancing mandates will do to the tourism here, the restaurant industry here, the weddings, the inability to have any kind of social gatherings, that actually takes away everything that we would be doing to make money for our family. And mm-hmm. if we can't keep going forward doing that, then how are we going to keep the roof over our head, and how are we going to provide for our kids? It's kind of been the question that we've had to be asking for the past couple weeks. So the movement is called.
Yeah, in fact, going into that, so you started this movement, and what is it called? The hashtag
So
or
hashtag free TN, and it's the Free Tennessee movement. And basically what happened is Governor Lee announced the extension to the shutdown. Some friends of mine who agreed with me that this was an overreach, this was too much. It was one thing to ask for it for a couple of weeks, but to extend it. And then there's a very specific phrase he used, and he continues to use this, and it's for me, it's just a huge overreach. It's that social distancing will be the new way of life for Tennesseans until there's a vaccine, and that will likely be about 18 months. It could be a year to 18 months before that happens. And that person, I mean, it crushes me and my family personally and directly. I know so many people that it does the same for. But also, when you look at, our constitutional rights and the implication of that, we should be allowed to choose what kind of solutions we want. We should be allowed to choose what kind of risks we want to take with our own bodies. We have that, we have those freedoms that are protected in the Constitution, and this 18 months of mandates is definitely stepping on those constitutional rights. And so the Free TN movement is a movement to be truly free from those mandates. We do believe that, it's important for there to be guidelines. We don't want anybody to be, harmed or suffering, whether it's from a virus or from an economic crisis. And we believe there needs to be a solution that, doesn't force other people to suffer for the sake of other people. You know what I mean? Like, there needs to be a more balanced kind of solution.
now, have you looked at what the actual gate and phase 1, 2, and 3 rollouts are that have come from the White House task force and what that's been communicated to the governors?
Yeah, so I was able to listen to the press conference when Deborah Birx kind of announced what they had, like a 3-phase program.
Mm-hmm.
And then I've been reading through in the last night, Tennessee as a state, their 4-phase program, and then my city mayor, his 4-phase program.
Right.
And
Which is Davidson County, right?
Exactly. I'm in Davidson.
Same as me. Yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, I have a lot of questions about it, like, screening employees when they come in and taking their temperature and checking for their respiratory symptoms and wondering, is that a HIPAA violation? And, for customers to have to go through a similar screening process, just wondering, like, man, these seem like a big overreach still. And then also thinking through things like restaurants, if they are only allowed to have half their customer base, and yet they have to do at least twice the amount of work in order for them to adhere to these strict guidelines and restrictions, then how are they going to continue to stay in business? And what happens to those employees? We've already lost, however many thousands of, like, to unemployment. So then how much harder is it going to continue to be under those? And then the fact that there's not like a date to end it. It's, they're saying we need to have fewer cases, and that has to be the case for 14 days before they'll move into the next phase. And then if that doesn't happen, they can move back into the other. So it's like this, we really don't have any idea when they say we're reopening Tennessee. Is it really? It doesn't feel like it.
Yeah, I mean, from what I understand, and just from the scientific perspective, it's kind of like, and I hate to make this analogy, but think about, like, if you're watching mice go through from a gate to a phase, to another phase, to another phase, and then the way that they go in and out of the scientific experiment is, if certain thresholds are crossed here, then you have to go back to here until you figure out when it's safe again to go into this next phase. So that's kind of like how it goes. Unfortunately, it is a thing where, and I remember the mayor saying this, Mayor Cooper, it's 4 phases that's based on data, not on dates.
Right.
So that is how they're pushing it out, rolling it out, etc. Do you have fears? Have you thought about maybe, what is your perspective on what if we do go back too quickly, and then we're in a worse situation that's lasting longer because we didn't do this carefully enough.
Yeah, I hear that, and I think it's important to look at some of the other states and how they've done things as well.
Mm-hmm.
There are other states who haven't had shutdowns, and if you look at there are smart people who've done mathematical calculations to take their population, their density, the number of cases, and the percentage of deaths, and the ones that did not shut down seem to be faring either exactly the same or better than the ones who did shut down. So I think it's important to take that into consideration. I also think, like, when it comes to, sorry, I just lost my train of thought.
No, it's fine. It's a deep subject.
It's a deep subject.
It's a deep subject, and it's an emotional subject.
It is an emotional subject. Yeah. I'm going to catch my train of thought again. Thinking through
all of the things that they could be looking at. They could be looking at the data, but they could be looking at, the rural density of things. They could be looking at, I don't know. I don't know what else. I'm not really sure. I think we're in such a chaotic time trying to figure it out while we're in the middle of it.
Right.
Which is kind of like trying to get out of a car wreck when you're in the middle of it. You know what I mean? Like it's a really hairy, sticky time.
Well, and I think so for me, and this is, I finally caught my train of thought. For me, when I look at the big picture,
Mm-hmm.
Is it possible that there will be an uptick in cases afterwards? Yeah, it's totally possible. But and this is just a personal conviction of mine, and this stands with how I feel about the Constitution. I am more afraid of losing liberty than I am of a virus in the big picture. And when you look at what our country was founded on and the freedoms, people went to war just to protect our way of life. And we're being told that we are forced to give up our way of life out of fear of a virus. Is it possible that the virus would come back up? Absolutely. But I also believe that I am personally responsible for my own well-being. I believe I'm personally responsible for my family's well-being. And that's not you're not responsible for me. And I have to be able to make the choices as to what risks I'm willing to take with myself and with my family. And instead, what's happening is we're being told which risks we are and are not allowed to take. And to the point that a lot of people are being forced to suffer. I saw in Cookeville a family who, because of COVID, had lost their job and actually were evicted, and they're homeless right now. And they were living out of their car for several days. And I just thought, how ironic that they're being told to stay home, but by staying home, they don't have a home anymore to stay in. That literally the solution has become worse than the problem and makes it worse. So it's this balance. You have to find something that is somewhere in the middle. It cannot just be this all or nothing extreme.
Right. So I think too that part of the problem with helping families that are struggling with the current situation is that the SBA loans dried up in the first stimulus package. We definitely lost out on that on our end. We submitted our application the second that the application opened up because we had done it the day before.
Yeah.
So we were ready. But it appears, and I can't name any particular bank names because I'm not going to do that, but I do know that there are class action suits against some of the banks that shuffled the applications to favor the larger applications to process first, just because they were so overwhelmed with all of them.
Yeah.
But they also got commissions based on the size of the loans as opposed to the numbers of loans that they pushed through or whatever it is that they did. And unfortunately, that meant that the smaller businesses, who are the ones who have people who are having to close their doors or live in their cars or do whatever it is, do something drastic to survive, those are the businesses that were victimized, if you will, in the bank's reshuffling.
Yeah.
So the applications. So this next package, I don't know all the details. I just remember the number was like $484 billion, I believe,
Oh
was
my
the
God.
next package to go out to small businesses. Do you know if you're able to, with your Airbnb and with also your DJ business together, will you be able to apply for payroll to be covered for each of you throughout whatever this ends up being? Because we don't really know.
Yeah, I haven't looked into the details of the new package. Everything that's come out, we've applied for. We haven't gotten our stimulus money yet.
We haven't either.
I don't know if they're going to run out of that. We didn't get the business loan either. And as far as I've seen so far, we don't qualify for unemployment within the state.
You qualify for something. I would definitely
Okay.
talk to somebody,
I
because
think I need someone to help me walk it through it, because I'm
even
looking
as
on the.
self-employed, you will qualify for something. I don't know the specifics around it, but talk to like your banker or somebody. You need or if you have an accountant or someone that you use for any
Yeah,
of
we
your
have a
stuff.
friend.
Yeah, to definitely reach out and
Okay.
find out what you need to do. And then with this next package, get that application, make sure that it's still in line. I know that ours is still in line. And so
Yeah.
when the new package is fully released, then we should be good to go on our end, as long as they process it,
Right.
So we'll see. So as far as the rallies or the protests or whatever you want to call them that have happened, tell me, when was the first one? Was that what's
We
today?
did one on Sunday, the 19th.
Sunday the 19th of April. Okay.
Yeah, and this one was it was local. So we had one in Nashville. There was another in Chattanooga. There was one in Knoxville, Johnson City, Memphis, Jackson, Cookeville. I think those were all the cities that were a part of the Free Tennessee movement. The Facebook group went from 30 people to 7,000 people in about 4 days. Just grew real fast.
That's fast.
Yeah, it was really fast, and it's all volunteer based. And a lot of people I met within the first 2 days, talking to them online and building up trust and rapport through conversations much like this. And city leaders were kind of nominated. So like, I've never been to Memphis. So we just
yeah, you needed your representatives all around.
Exactly. So it was kind of cool to see these groups, hundreds of people in Chattanooga and in Knoxville and in Johnson City and Cookeville just kind of pop up and show up together. We agreed on, we decided, look, this is nonpartisan. I don't, like, you can represent any party, I don't care, but this is nonpartisan. This is about our constitutional right to peaceably assemble, our right to life and liberty, and our right to equal representation under the law. And as soon as you have somebody deemed non-essential, they're no longer equal, and they can't pursue life and liberty, and no one can have the right to peaceably assemble under these executive orders. And so that was kind of what the rally was about, was kind of protesting the executive orders that were taking away our constitutional rights. And we said, we want everybody to be safe, and we want everyone to feel comfortable. So of course, I'm not going to mandate something that I don't want mandated on me. I wasn't going to force people to be socially distant or wear masks, but I also wasn't going to allow people to be ridiculed or, discouraged from that. So we agreed we wanted completely safe options. You could ride in your car and just beep your horn and be fully protected in your own vehicle. You could be down on the ground, wear a mask, keep 6 feet apart, advocate for yourself, and definitely take the distance that you want. But then there were, of course, people who didn't want to do any of that, and they just wanted to be free and be out there with signs, and we were welcoming them as well. So that was how we were going to be peaceable, was respecting one another's boundaries. And the rally that we have coming up on Monday, the 27th, will be the same idea. Just we're asking everybody from the whole state to come to the state capitol and protest it there.
Okay. And was there anything else last week, or was it just on Sunday?
With Free Tennessee, that is it. There have been other people who've like had up their own protests. I think there were about 50 people on the 20th on Monday. I've seen other people say that they just went out there and there's like a dozen people. So there's definitely people kind of continuing to protest throughout the week, but the Free Tennessee movement has only scheduled 2 events so far.
Okay. Okay. All right. I think I might have been getting it confused with something else because I saw other dates and so I didn't really know what was going on. Okay, so the 19th was at the Capitol. That was the one. I did go to that. I walked up. I live right here near it, and so I walked over to watch, and I saw all the cars and the beeping and the and the flag waving and the hanging out of the car. I was like, these people really need something entertaining to do because I think that they're having fun right now.
It was a lot of fun.
Just to get out of the house, right?
Yes.
So I do have a question though. What if something kicked up as a result of the protests, because even though people are free to do what they want to do, if they're not socially distancing and they're able to trace it back to something like that, like I'm just assuming, let's just say Mondays is going to be huge and that there's all these people and then they attribute a bigger outbreak to that. What do you think about that? Does that concern you?
I mean, I'd be sad if there was an outbreak attributed to anything. If you could trace it back to a grocery store, or if you could trace it back to, like no matter what, I think it's sad when people are sick and die from any of that. I think it depends on whether or not you agree that your right to assemble is essential. And, grocery shopping is essential. So it could happen there. Well, I think my right to assemble is essential. And everybody who was there made that same agreement. And we're willing to take that risk. And if it happens, is it sad? Absolutely. But I stand by that the right to assemble is essential. Our constitutional rights are essential.
Okay. Sounds good. So I wanted to explore a little bit about what we talked about before we actually started recording about the vaccine potentially, not the vaccine, I'm sorry, about the actual COVID-19 starting sometime back in the fall and the speculation that there was that. I've always thought that this started way before because I feel like it's kind of this rumbling that's going along and then it starts, going up from there. Yeah. And so it's probably been festering, if you will, whatever you want to call it, for months, and then finally started showing itself, and then us having the detectability with the test and so forth to be able to actually know what's happening. So what's your thought on that?
Yeah, I definitely think it was here in the fall. And, the study in California is reassuring, the one that is showing that, it's been here since September. I remember in the fall having this cough that would not go away. And I'm someone who, I love homeopathy. I do a lot of natural home remedies. So when things hit me and they last for that long, it's a little weird. But that was like the worst symptom for me. But right after that, one of my close friends just fell like deathly ill. She was out, high fever, all of the symptoms. At the end, she was coughing up blood. She went to the hospital twice. They had no idea what it was. She tested negative for the flu, and they were like, we just don't know. We just don't know what to tell you. And a lot of our friends had very similar symptoms all around the same time frame. So for us, like it seems very reasonable and believable that it was here and that's probably what that was. And yeah, it's not fun. I don't want anybody to have that.
No.
Right. Like definitely don't want anybody to have it. But I also think wash your hands. Stay home if you're sick. I understand taking normal common sense hygiene type.
Right.
So.
Right. So what are you doing? I mean, I understand that you're in the middle of this Free Tennessee movement, and you know you've got a part in the leadership of that, and I know that you've got other people that are stepping up to help with that as well. But as far as your personal situation, and you don't have to answer if you don't want to, but are you thinking of anything else that you might be able to do right now to get through this? Because I mean, even we can protest and we can say that this is going to happen and we can argue about it and, you know, say whatever to the governor and do all these things. But at the end of the day, we don't really know what's going to happen from that perspective yet.
Yeah.
And so it's, if you're stuck in it, what are you going to do next? Do you have any, you know, plans of switching course? Does your husband have any plans to change anything that he might be able to do to help your situation, your personal situation?
Yeah, I mean, that is definitely the conversation on the table every day. Some ideas that we've had have been around, you know, we worked really hard to create this space for somebody else to live in. So maybe we could rent it out like on a long-term basis for less money. And that would at least help to supplement some of the income. Of course, depends on if there's a market for that or not, you know. I know that, you know, housing and rental prices will ebb and flow. So it's an idea. It has to be the right amount for us to be able to stay in the house. Unfortunately, another one, and I don't like this one, is, you know, other counties are opening up and are not having the same restrictions. And my husband can go work there, but that means he's giving business to another county while Nashville suffers. And that makes us sad, especially when Mayor Cooper's wanting to hike the property taxes up 20%. And for, you know, like to know that like our city is going to be suffering even more than our neighboring city. But it's something that we might be able to do. So those are just some of the ideas that we've thought of, but obviously until we know more about, you know, how this will play out and the effect that Free Tennessee might have on the mayor's decisions, we're trying not to jump into anything rashly.
Right. Well, I mean, yeah, as far as temporary situations go, you don't really know, is this going to be another month? Is it going to be 2 weeks? Is it going to be 3 months? You know, how's it going to roll out? How are the other thing is, how's the market going to respond? That's going to be the key, because think about it. If somebody was getting married in the next couple of months and all of that's been canceled as a result of this, let's say it all comes online in a month, are they going to rebook yet?
Who knows?
You know, who knows? Yeah. And or are they going to decide to do something altogether different?
Do they have the money to do it? Is their location still available? Can their location keep up with all of the restrictions? Does that mean they have to cut their wedding party in half? Like, so many questions.
Right. And then the whole Airbnb situation. Yeah, there's a lot of those around here. So what happens with the competition of that? And so there's a whole lot of things.
And I need to look into it. I know that there are some COVID-19 restrictions if you're going to continue to operate your Airbnb that you have to adhere to. And because we live in the same house, I'm not sure if it's possible. It just that just might be off the table.
Is yours a situation where they come in from a different entrance? Or
they do come in from a different entrance. So we might be okay, but
do they share
I just haven't looked into it.
Do they share any rooms, like usage of any rooms with you
guys?
No,
we share a driveway. That's it. So
well, it may be. I would say that you would have more luck there than you would if it were a room in your house,
right?
With a shared kitchen, a shared bathroom, or anything like that.
Right.
Yeah. Okay. Was there anything else that you would like to add before I ask my last question?
Oh goodness. I can't think of anything. I'm just very, very grateful for an opportunity to get to talk it out and to say some of the things. It feels really good. So thank you.
Well, good. I'm glad. I feel for you. I feel for your situation. I mean, we have our own situation, but it's not the same. It's definitely not. We have different types of businesses. I do run an online business, and it's busy,
Yeah.
but we do have a business that was mostly shut down, if you will. So I get that, totally get that, and have empathy for that and for you and personally.
Thank you.
Um,
I did think of something
yeah, what?
that we didn't get to touch on that I think is important to talk about. And I think it's the mental health and the emotional health of what prolonged social distancing will do and the effects of that. And I think we've gotten to a place that it's really easy for us to look at physical health and say that that is its own thing, and then mental and emotional health is another thing, and they don't relate at all. But it's just not true.
They relate.
They relate completely. And if we are, so we've been isolating for so long, right? And everybody's stressed. Whether you think you should be isolating or you think it should be over, you're stressed. We're all feeling that. And when we come back out, we will be exposed to the virus. It is going to happen. And those of us who are feeling at the very bottom of this level of stress, who've had no one to hug, no one to release that stress with, no emotional connection with friends. In fact, a lot of division if you disagree with any of your friends, right? All this hostility. Your immune system is tanked. And if you're going to get exposed to the virus after all of that, guess what? It's probably going to be more severe than if you had gotten it 2 weeks earlier when you still had all of those resources that help to give you that holistic health. And if we are in this constant ebb and flow of unknown, I can work, I can't work, I'm essential, I'm not essential, I have to wear a mask, I can touch you, I can't touch you, all of this for the next year, it's going to be worse. It's like the virus is going to be worse because of that, you know, and then it might have been if we hadn't done that. So, and I think too, it's important to take into consideration the fact that, you know, suicide hotlines were getting hit over almost 900% increase, and just what unemployment does to people and their hearts. You know, heart disease increases with that kind of thing. So just our health is going to completely tank with this. And if we don't talk about that as well, then, you know, we might as well say we don't care about them. And I don't think that that's true. I think we do care. We just have to find a way to actually show it. So,
well, and think about all of the people who have been laid off from jobs. If they don't, and the unemployment we all know is not near enough compared to what we make,
right,
most of the time. So people can't continue to pay those healthcare premiums either, and so then they don't have healthcare insurance, and then they get sick. Yeah, it's like this ball that keeps rolling and rolling and rolling, and then you turn around on the other side and it's like, well, the virus is doing this, and the community, you know, the money, the financial part is doing this, and so it's all one big world tragedy, if you will. And I think we're all going to suffer through some sort of traumatic response to that.
Yeah.
But through all that pain, through all of the things that we're having to go through, I do believe it's temporary. I don't know how temporary, but I believe it's temporary. What are your hopes at the end of it, that maybe things might change in the world as a result? Is there anything that you're thinking of beyond?
I think I would love to see people valuing both their freedom and also making choices that are respectful of other people and mindful of how those choices affect one another. I think that goes on whether, you know, on both sides of the, you know, shutdown or not shutdown debate. I just hope that we have a better grasp of the unintended consequences of choices, and that we really, you know, as a state, as a city, as a country, really take the time to think through those unintended consequences before we make decisions, and that we, you know, that we spend time doing this kind of dialogue with one another, especially if we disagree. I think Benjamin Franklin said, you know, if everybody is thinking alike, then nobody's thinking. And I think it's really important that we think.
It is important that we think, and we
Yes.
think through all the options and all the perspective. It's very difficult to do that, though. It is very difficult, especially to look from another angle that you've probably never been to before.
Yeah.
It's really hard to see what's around the corner on the other side. Well, I hope that everything goes forward well for you. I think that you'll find some things that will solve your personal issues, but I also commend you for pulling people together in that way. I hope that everybody does. I mean, from my personal standpoint, I hope everybody keeps their distance so that they're not spreading the virus around and we can get over this faster, and then everybody can go back to work and back to school and do all the things that we love to do, and whatever that new normal may be, in which I would love for you to listen to the other episodes of the podcast, as there's lots of different thoughts and ideas of how this world is going to change after all this. So,
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you, Kimberly, and it's been nice talking to you today.
Nice talking to you too. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Thank you for listening today. Subscribe to this podcast to hear all our episodes. Go to shoutyourcause.com to our podcast page for information on our guests and notes from this show.